Hey guys, my name's Dave and welcome to another Guitar Zero to Hero song tutorial. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you how to play I'm Not Okay by My Chemical Romance. For the basics of this song, you'll just need your guitar in standard tuning and you won't need a capo. If you want to master your chords back to front, then head over to guitarzerotohero.com to pick up my free guitar ebook. Or if you want to improve in guitar in general, then check out Guitar Zero to Hero Premium, which is my complete step-by-step guitar course. Okay, let's get stuck into it. In terms of tone, I'm just using my bridge pickup here. I've got my volume and my tone all set at 10. I'm using a high gain amp channel, but you can get a similar effect by just using a clean amp and adding a distortion pedal in front of it. If you want my tone patches, I'll leave them in the link in the description below. I'm going to start by teaching you all of Frank's guitar parts, and he plays most of the rhythm in this song. And in the second half of this video, I'll teach you all of Ray's guitar parts. So Ray's guitar will start for 2 bars and nothing is played there from Frank until the 3rd bar. And we're going to play a D power chord. So index finger on the 5th fret of the 5th string and ring and pinky on the 7th frets of the 4th and 3rd string. Now, when you play this power chord, you also want to lightly rest your index finger across all the other strings below that 5th string. That way, when you strum all the strings, only the ones that are fretted are going to ring out. Now, in order to mute the open 6th string, because we don't want that ringing out either, you could just lightly touch it with your index finger as you fret that 5th string. We're going to play this power chord with some palm muting, so take the fleshy bit of your palm, rest it lightly on the edge of the bridge, and we're going to play at 8th notes here. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now for the 4th bar, we're going to continue that until the 3 and 4 beat, where we're just going to strike the chords like normal. 3, 4. But there's some staccato there. We're going to hit it and then let go of our chord and then hit it again on the 4 beat. So the 4th bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And the lead in. Now we get to the intro chords, and these are going to be used in the choruses as well. First off, let me teach you the easiest way of playing this, and then I'll teach you a more complicated version, which is actually in the studio recording. So we're going to stay on our D5 power chord, and we're going to strum this with a down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. We're going to strum that D chord for 3.5 bars. And for that final bar, halfway through, we're going to move down to an A/C sharp. So keep your ring finger where it is, move your index finger down 1 fret, lift your pinky finger and put that middle finger on the 6th fret of the 3rd string. So the final bar, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And then for the second line of tab, we're just going to go to a B5 power chord. So it's the same as our D5, but just down at 2nd and 4th frets. And that's going to be played for 4 bars. For the third line of tab, we're just going to lift our ring and pinky finger and have your index finger just across the 2nd fret of the 5th and 4th string. We're just going to focus on those top 3 strings there, and we're going to be strumming that for 4 bars. And then finally for our 4th line of tab, we go up to an A power chord. So it's the same as our D power chord, but we shift all our fingers up 1 string. And that's our A5 power chord, and that's played for 4 bars as well. So the easiest way of playing this intro . Now, the more complicated version, which sounds awesome and is what's in the actual recording, is something like this. So for our first bar of this D, we're going to just play our regular D5. So, and then we're going to change position. So we'll lift our pinky finger and play that 6th fret of the 3rd string with our middle finger for 1 full bar. Then for the 3rd bar, we're going to take our pinky finger and reach it up to the 9th fret of the 3rd string. Now, remember, all this time, you really need to keep your 1st and 2nd string muted. And we do that again by lightly resting our index finger across all these bottom strings. We're not pushing down on them, that's barring. We're just lightly touching them and making contact with those strings. So we play this position for a full bar. For the 4th bar, we go back to our D5 for half a bar, 1 and 2, and then down to our A/C sharp. That's it for the first line of tab here. For the second line of tab, we start with this B5. And then we move our pinky finger up to the 6th fret of the 3rd string. So this is a bit of a stretch, but you should be able to get it with enough practice. We're going to strum this for a full bar. And then for the 3rd bar, we take our pinky and we put it up on that 5th fret of the 2nd string. And we want to keep that 3rd string muted here. So only the 5th, 4th, and 2nd strings are ringing out. And for the 4th bar, we return our pinky back to that 6th fret of the 3rd string. So the second line of tab. For the 3rd line of tab, there are no variations. It's this E5 for the whole way through. And then finally, when we get to our A5, we start the 1st bar with the regular A5. For the 2nd bar, we're going to take our pinky and stretch it up to the 9th fret of the 4th string. And for the 3rd bar, you can lift your pinky finger and middle finger goes on the 6th fret of the 3rd string. And we'll keep that 4th string muted. And we're going to play this for the 3rd and 4th bar, so the final line tab. And altogether, the intro chords, which is also used in the chorus, sounds like this. Next we get to the verse, which is quite simple. It's just power chords. And we're going to return back to our palm muting. So we're going to take the fleshy bit of our palm, rest it lightly on the edge of the bridge. We're going to start with our D5 power chord, and we're going to just palm mute this with downstrokes for 3.5 bars. And halfway through that final bar, we'll stretch our index finger down 1 fret to the 4th fret. And that's our A/C sharp, kind of what we had in the intro. Now this song is at quite a fast tempo. It's at 180 BPM. So what I would suggest when you're practicing this, set a metronome at a slower speed, like 140 BPM or 150, and try to get that first. And once you get comfortable with that, slowly increase the metronome until you're comfortable at the full speed. Now, one little tip to keep time with metronome is that every 2 strums will align with a click. So click, 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 click. So that's a couple of tips for practicing this. Now the second line of tab, we go to our B5 and we're gonna palm mute that for 4 bars. And then for the third line of tab, we're gonna palm mute our E5 for 4 bars. And then finally we go to our A5. We're gonna palm mute that for 4 bars. So this is what the verse will sound like. I'll play it along with the metronome at 130 BPM. Again, if that's too fast, then I would really suggest you slow down the metronome. Just work at a comfortable speed first. It simply takes time to gain speed, so just keep working at it. Another tip here is that you shouldn't tense any of your muscles. The tighter you are and the more tension you have in your arm, the quicker you're going to fatigue. You want to keep a really loose wrist and loose forearm, and a lot of the motion will just come from your wrist moving back and forth. It shouldn't be the forearm going back and forth. So then we get to chorus 1, which is the same as the intro chords that we've already learnt, so nothing new there. Then verse 2 is the same as verse 1. When we get to chorus 2, it's almost identical to chorus 1 with one minor exception in the final bar. So for the final bar, we have this A chord here, and we're just gonna play this for half a bar, so 1, 2, 1. And for the third beat, we'll hit just the 5th fret of the 6th string, and then we'll hit the 6th fret of the 6th string. on the 4 beat. So the final bar, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's the only difference between chorus 2 and chorus 1. So that will take us into the solo. Now the rhythm for the solo section has 5 lines of tab here. We're gonna start up here at a B5 power chord. So index finger on the 7th fret of the 6th string and our pinky finger on the 9th fret of the 5th string. Again, you wanna just lightly rest your index finger across all the strings here, making contact with them but not pushing them down so that they're all muted except the notes that we want to ring out. So we're going to strum this 4 times, and in between each strum you just want to rest your palm onto the strings so that we get a staccato feel. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So notice how after each time I hit it, I just drop my hand onto the strings so it's muted. You could also just lift your fretting fingers as well, like that, after each strum. We're going to do that 4 times here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll go down to our A5, so 2 frets down. And we're going to do the exact same thing. Then for the 3rd bar, we're going to shift this index finger down 1 fret. So this is a E/G sharp. We're going to strum this 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then for the final bar, we go to an E5, 1, 2, and back to our E/G sharp twice. 3, 4. So the first line of tab. For the second line of tab, we start with our A5 for a full bar, then down to our E/G sharp for 1 bar. Then we go down to an F sharp 5 power chord, so it's 2nd and 4th frets, 1 full bar. And then for the final bar, we go our E5 for half a bar and back to our F sharp 5 for half a bar. So the second line of tab. Now the 3rd line of tab is identical to the 1st line of tab, and then we get to the 4th line of tab, which is just going up to the A5 power chord, and you can play this any way you like. And we're just going to be palm muting this for 8 bars. So the 4th and 5th line of tab are just the A5 palm muted at 8th note, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and again for 8 bars. So that's it for the solo rhythm, which sounds like this. Okay, next we get to a chorus break, what I'm just going to call chorus variation. Now the first 3 bars here are silence, it's just a piano in the background. And then for the 4th bar, there's a bit of feedback on the guitar. Feedback's quite easy to get if you really crank your amp up and face your electric guitar towards the speaker and have a high amount of gain. But an easier way of sort of emulating this is to just hit a 4th fret harmonic on the 6th string. So just lightly rest any one of your fingers on top of the fret strip dividing 4th and 5th frets. Now we're not pushing down the string, we're just lightly touching the string above that 4th fret strip, like that. And that's held out for that full bar, and then on the 5th bar, we hit a B5 power chord. Hold that out for 4 beats, and at the start of the second line of tab, we just hit an E5 and immediately choke it out. So there's a bit more silence here, and then in the 4th bar of the second line of tab, halfway through, we're going to do a pick slide. Now this is optional, you don't have to do the pick slide, but stylistically it sounds really cool. So get yourself into an A5 chord position because we're gonna need to strum that right after the pick slide. Now to pick slide, take the edge of your pick, so the side of your pick, and you're gonna slide that across your top 2 strings here. And then we're going to hit an A5 power chord right after that. Hold that out for 2 bars, and then after the 2 bars, we're going to palm mute this A5 for 1 full bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then in the final bar, we strike it and then choke it out. So there's a few different things going on here, but it's a lot of fun to actually play. So I'm gonna count it in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we get to the final chorus, which is just the same as chorus number 1. And we're gonna end the song on a D5 power chord and just let that ring out. And those are all of Frank's guitar parts. So now let's move on to Ray Toro's guitar parts, and he plays basically all the lead in this song. We start with the lead in, and he's going to start with a D octave shape. So it's the same as our D5 power chord, but we're gonna lift our ring finger here. So it's just our index finger hitting the 5th fret of the 5th string, and our pinky finger hitting the 7th fret of the 3rd string. Now it's really important that you mute a lot of strings here using your index finger. So with your index finger, push down the root note, but also have that ring finger lightly resting above all the other strings below it so that none of them ring out. So touch your index finger across all those lower strings, and then with your index finger also touch the 6th string above your index finger so that only your 5th string rings out, and then when you put your pinky finger down, that octave note will ring out. We're just strumming this with a down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up for 4 bars. Really, really easy. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Next we get to the intro, which is also the same lead used in the chorus. And there's 4 lines of tab here. So we're gonna do some more octaves, but this time on the 4th and 2nd string. So our shape actually changes a little bit. We're gonna start on the 12th and 15th frets here. So 12th fret of the 4th string, 15th fret of the 2nd string. Now the same thing applies. When you fret this, you only want that 4th and 2nd string ringing out, nothing else. And what you can do with your free middle finger is actually lightly touch the 5th string. And that way, if you strum all the strings, only that octave will ring out. We're gonna strum this shape for a full bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then down to 7th and 10th for a full bar, down to 5th and 8th for a full bar, and then down to 4th and 7th for a full bar. So it's pretty simple. And the first line of tab. Now the second line of tab is identical to the first line of tab. For the third line of tab, we go up to the 5th and 8th fret octave for full bar, and then up 2 frets to the 7th and 10th octave, and then down to the 2nd and 5th octave for 2 bars. So the third line of tab. And then for the 4th line of tab, we go to the 5th and 8th fret octave, move the shape 2 frets up for the next bar, 2 more frets up for the next bar, and then 2 more frets up for the final bar. And that's it for the intro lead, which is also used in the chorus, and it sounds like this. Next we get to verse 1, which is a really cool guitar part. It's one of my favorite guitar parts to play in this song, but it is a little tricky, so you'll need to take it slow. We're going to be using a combination of palm muting and regular strokes, and some of the accents are on syncopated beats, so you get this really cool sort of rhythm pattern going on. So we're going to start with the D5 power chord here, and we're going to palm mute the root note here. So take the fleshy bit of your palm and palm mute the 5th string. We're going to do that twice, and then we'll strike the 4th and 3rd strings together. So 1 and 2. We're going to repeat those 3 notes again. And after that, we're going to just palm mute the root note just once instead of twice, and then accent the 4th and 3rd strings. We put that all together in the first bar. So what you're going to have to do here is momentarily lift your palm as you hit those accented notes. And then as you hit the root note, drop your palm back down. This will take a little bit of practice, and I would highly encourage that you practice along with the metronome. The second bar is identical to the first bar. For the third bar, we're just changing our chord shape. So lift your pinky finger and your middle finger will go onto the 6th fret of the 3rd string. The palm muted pattern will be identical though. So the third bar. Then we get to the final bar and the rhythm differs here. So let's take a look at the first 4 plucks. We're gonna put our pinky finger back down onto the 7th fret, palm mute twice for the root note, then accent on the 2 beat, and then palm mute on the end beat after the 2. So that's the first 4 plucks. And then on the 3 beat, we're going to lift our pinky finger, go to this shape, strike the 4th and 3rd strings, put our pinky finger back down, strike those 2 strings, and then repeat that again. So the second half of this bar, and the full bar in total. That might be a little confusing, but just take it 1 bar at a time and you'll get it. Next we get to the second line of tab. Now, all the rhythm and the accents are identical. The only thing we're changing is the bass note here. So instead of having our index finger hitting the 5th fret of the 5th string, we're gonna lift our index finger and your middle finger is gonna come here onto the 7th fret of the 6th string. And that is our new root note that we're gonna be palm muting. When we shift our 4th and 3rd strings to 7th and 6th frets, you'll be using your index finger here to move down to the 6th fret of the 3rd string. Those are the only things to consider, but the rhythms and the accents remain identical. So the second line of tab. Next we get to the third line of tab, and again, the only thing we're changing is the bass note. So we're gonna lift our middle finger here, and our bass note is now going to be the open 6th string. So that's the note that we're gonna be palm muting, but all our accents remain the same. So the third line of tab. And for the fourth line of tab, again, our bass note is going to be changing to the open 5th string here. So the first 2 bars in this position. For the third bar, when we change our positions, we're going to use our middle finger again to go down to that 6th fret. And for the final bar, we'll palm mute this open A 4 times. And then we'll hit the 4th and 3rd strings, palm mute, and then with your index finger go down to the 4th fret of the 3rd string, keeping your ring finger here on the 7th, and then palm mute the open A. So the final bar, and the 4th line of tab in total. That's it for verse number 1. Again, some of that rhythm might be tricky, especially if you're new to guitar, but just take it really slow and practice with a metronome. I'm going to play verse 1 here at 100 BPM, so see how you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next is chorus 1, but we've already learnt that it's the same lead guitar as what we had in the intro. Next we get to verse 2. Now verse 2 actually differs from verse 1. We're going to be doing something similar in terms of the palm muting and accenting, but the rhythms and what we're actually playing slightly change. Our first 2 chunks of 3 notes are going to remain the same. So bass note twice and accent. We're going to do that twice. On the 4 end beat, we're just going to hit the bass note and palm mute that twice. So the first bar. Now for the second bar, this is where things change. So we're going to take our pinky finger, slide it up to the 9th fret of the 3rd string, accent that, and then palm mute the bass note, move your pinky finger back down to the original position, accent that, hit the bass note again, and then we're going to play those 4 notes that we had at the end of each line of tab in the first verse, which sounded like this. So the second bar here. and the first 2 bars all together. Now the 3rd and 4th bar are just repeats of the 1st and 2nd bar. So that's it for the 1st liner tab. We move to the 2nd liner tab, and the accents and the rhythm are going to be identical to the 1st liner tab, but again, we're just changing our root note here. And it's going to be that 7th fret of the 6th string. But we're going to do everything exactly the same, including moving our pinky finger up to that 9th fret of the 3rd string. So the 1st bar, and the 2nd bar, and all together. And that's just repeated through twice for the 2nd liner tab. For the 3rd liner tab, it's identical, except we lift our middle finger from that 6th string, and our root note is the open 6th string. Another thing I like to do in this 3rd liner tab is also use my free middle finger here to lightly touch the 5th string, so that you're not accidentally hitting the open 5th string, and that just ensures that the open 6th string is the main root note. And that's just played through twice for the 3rd liner tab. For the 4th liner tab, our root note changes to the A. So the first 2 bars here. The 3rd bar is identical to the 1st bar. And finally the 4th bar, what we're going to do is play in this position with our ring in middle. I'm going to start by accenting that, and then palm muting our root note, and stretching our index finger down to that 4th fret of the 3rd string, accenting that, and then hitting the bass note. And we're going to do that through twice. So the last 2 bars of this 4th liner tab. That's it for verse 2, which is a little bit different to verse 1 and slightly more challenging because you have to move your pinky finger up to that 9th fret. But this is what it'll sound like at 100 BPM. Next we get to chorus 2, which is similar to chorus 1 with one minor exception. So it's basically all identical except for the final bar. So for the final bar, we usually went up to this 11th and 14th fret octave, but what we're going to do is we're just going to hit that 11th fret of the 4th string, bend it up a half tone, and then bend it down. So I'll play the final line tab here. And that's the only thing that's different between chorus 1 and chorus 2. Okay, so now we get to the solo, which is a lot of fun. Now there's actually 3 guitar parts here for the solo. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna teach you the main solo part, and then I'll teach you the harmonies that are played on top. So this solo has 4 lines of tab. We're gonna start on the 12th fret of the 2nd string, and we're going to hit this and bend it up a full tone. So it should match the pitch of the 14th fret. So we're gonna do that twice on the 1 and the 3 beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4. For the next bar, we'll do another bend and release, then down to 10th, and then down to 9th fret of the 2nd string. So the 2nd bar. For the next lick, we're gonna hit that 9th fret and hammer onto the 10th, and then down to 9th fret of the 3rd string. And for the final bar, we go 9th fret of the 3rd string, up to 12th fret of the 1st, down to 9th fret, and then back up to the 10th. So the final bar, and the first line of tab in total. For the second line of tab, we're going to start off the same way with the first 3 bends. So down to 10th fret, back up to 12th, hold that out, and then the next lick, we're going to hit that 12th fret and slide up to 14th, and then down to 10th fret. So that little lick. And for the final bar, we're going to hit 10th fret, down to 9th, back up to 10th, and then up to 12th. So those 4 notes, and then we're going to hit those 4 notes again. Second line of tab. For the third line of tab, we'll start by hitting the 12th fret and sliding up to 14th, back to 12th. So the first little lick. For the next lick, we'll hit the 10th fret, hammer on to 12th. Then we'll pluck the 10th and slide down to 9th. So that lick. And the bar in total. For the next lick, we'll hit the 10th fret, pull off to 9th, 12th fret of the second string and back up to 9th. So this first lick for the second bar. You're going to hit the 12th fret of the second string, bend it up, and keep that ring finger bent as you hit the 9th fret of the first string with your index finger, and then hit your second string again whilst it's bent and release it back down. So the 3 notes there. Now one little tip here when you're bending your notes is that you want to use more than one finger to bend. So don't just use your ring finger and bend by itself. Use your middle finger to help support it behind that fret, and that will make bending notes a whole lot easier. So this second bar, and then this next run is probably the trickiest part of this song, but once you get it, it's actually not too bad. So it's just a really quick scale run, and we're going to do a whole bunch of hammer-ons. So there's a lot of legato here. The picking actually isn't too fast. It's what's happening with your left hand, which is the trickiest part. So start with the 9th fret of the 4th string. We're going to hit this, and then hammer on to 11th and 12th. So, and these are all at triplets as well. So we have groups of 3 notes here. So that's our first group of 3. And then 9th fret of the 3rd string, hammer on to 11th and 13th. So the second group of 3 notes. Now you only have to pluck each string once, like so. Then for our next group of notes, it's 10th fret, 12th and 14th of the second string. And then we go up to the 10th fret of the first string, back to the 14th fret of the second and pull off to 12th. So that's our final set of 3 notes. And then we end this whole run by plucking the 10th fret of the second string. So all together. So that's it at a slow speed, but at the fast speed it'll actually be something more like this. Just practice this slow though, because it can get a little overwhelming if you just try to jump into it full speed. And one more time. And that's it for the main solo part, which sounds like this in total. Now I'm going to teach you the first harmony to this guitar solo if you happen to want to play it or have another guitarist who wants to play it. So we're going to start by bending the 15th fret of the second string up a full tone. We're going to do that 3 times. Then down to 14th, down to 12th. And then our next lick is 12th, hammer on to 14th. And then 13th fret of the 3rd string. And then for the final bar, we'll hit this 13th fret twice, up to 14th and up to 12th fret of the second. So the first line of tab. For the second line of tab, we start with the same 3 bends. After the 3 bends, we go down to the 14th fret, back up to 15th, and the next lick is 15th, slide up to 17th, and then down to 14th with our index. So this lick. And for the final bar, we hit 14th, down to 12th, 14th, 12th, 14th, 12th, 14th, 12th. So the second line of tab. Then for the third line of tab, we're going to take our middle finger, hit the 13th fret of the third string, and we're going to bend this up, but we're just going to bend it up a half tone. So it's not a full tone, it's just to the same pitch as the 14th fret of the third string. And then we're going to pluck it and bend again and release. And our final run is similar to our final run for the main guitar part, but our notes are just different. So there's a whole bunch of hammer-ons here. So I'm going to start on the 12th fret of the 4th string, hammer on to 14th and 16th, and then go to the 13th fret, hammer on to 14th and 16th, and then on our next string, 14th fret to 15th and 17th, up to 14th fret, back down to 17th, pull off to 15th, and then we end on our 14th fret here. So all together. One more time. And that's it for the first harmony, which sounds like this. Next, let's learn the third solo guitar part. So this is the second harmony. We're going to start with the 9th fret of the 4th string. I'm going to bend this up a full tone 3 times. Down to 7th, down to 6th, and then hit the 6th fret, hammer on to 7th, and then 7th fret of the 5th string. For the final bar, 7th fret, 5th, 4th, and back up to 5th. So the first line of tab. The second line of tab, we go up to 7th fret of the 5th string, up to 9th, and then 6th fret of the 4th, 7th, and 9th fret twice. Hold out for a little bit, and the third bar we hit 9th and back down to 7th. And for the final bar, we go 7th, 6th, 7th, 9th, and repeat that again. So the second line of tab. For the third line of tab, we go up to the 7th fret of the 3rd string, down to 6th, then we go 9th fret of the 4th, back up to 6th fret of the 3rd, 9, 7, 9, 7, 6, 7, 6, then down to 9th fret of the 5th, 6th fret of the 4th, back to 9th fret of the 5th, and then end on the 7th fret of the 5th string. That's a bit of a long run, but all together. And together with the first 2 notes. And then we end with another quick flurry of notes, which are all hammer-ons again. So we're going to start on the 7th fret of the 6th string, hit that, hammer on to 9th and 10th. Then for the next string, 7th fret, hammer on to 9th and 11th. The 4th string is the same. And then we'll go up to 7th fret of the 3rd, back to 11th fret of the 4th, pull off to 9th, and then we end on the 7th fret. So all together. And that's the second harmony part all together, which sounds like this. Next we get to the chorus variation, and what Ray plays is going to be basically identical to what Frank plays. So I've already taught you that. If you want a recap of that, then just skip backwards in this lesson to Frank's guitar parts. After the chorus variation, there's the final chorus, which is just identical to chorus number 1, and we end the song on this octave, the 12th and 15th fret octave. And those are all of Ray's guitar parts. So now I'll be doing 2 playthroughs of this song. The first playthrough will be all of Frank's rhythm guitar parts, and then I'll play all of Ray's lead guitar parts. And I'll have a vocal track on top for some context. A big thanks to my friend Tugler for lending his awesome vocals to this playthrough. Feel free to play this back as many times as you'd like to practice, play along to, and see how you go. Thanks so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this lesson, then I know you'll absolutely love these other lessons too. So hit the link here, or if you want to grab a copy of my free guitar ebook, then head over to guitarzerotohero.com or click the link here. Thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next time on Guitar Zero to Hero. Cheers.